I stayed late for weeks to cover for a teammate on maternity leave. She came back, took one look at me, and said, "Didn't think you'd still be here. You seem too fragile for real work." 2 days later, she presented my project as her own. So I replaced her slide deck with my old drafts, filled with errors, mistakes, and outdated charts. And while she fumbled in front of the VP, I hit send on an email titled, "I'm the kind of person who just does the work and tries not to cause problems. I'm not loud, I don't draw attention, and I don't chase praise. I work in a large tech company where results are everything and politics runs deep. I've been there for almost 5 years. I'm good at what I do. Not flashy, but reliable." Last December, my teammate, let's call her Brenna, went on maternity leave. Before she left, our manager asked me to pick up some of her projects, especially one major presentation that was supposed to be delivered to the executive team in Q2. It was high stakes. Brenna had done the initial research and outline, but nothing else. I was supposed to just hold it down, but really I rebuilt it from scratch. From January through April, I worked late almost every night. I rewrote the market analysis, pulled new data, rewired the logic in the presentation deck. There were days I didn't leave until 9 p.m. My weekends blurred. I was exhausted, but I was proud of it. I had created something solid, something real, and I did it under my name, on my own work drive. Then in May, Brenna came back. She walked into the office like nothing had happened. I figured maybe we'd go over the project together and transition it back to her. I expected a thank you, maybe even a coffee or something. Instead, her first words to me were, "Didn't think you'd still be here. You seem too fragile for real work." I actually laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. The next 2 days were weird. She barely looked at me. Then she asked for access to the deck I'd been working on. I shared it, thinking it was just a handover. A day later, she removed my access. When I brought it up, she acted confused. "Oh, must have been a permissions glitch," she said. Then Thursday afternoon, our team calendar showed that she would be presenting the Q2 deck to the VP. Not me. No credit, no mention. I went to my manager, and he brushed it off. "She was the original project lead," he said. "It makes sense." I sat at my desk for an hour after that, just staring at my screen. It was like someone had reached into my chest and taken everything I'd built. All those nights, all that quiet sacrifice. And they gave it to her because she had the title from before. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. Instead, I remembered something. I had the entire version history saved on my own drive, including a backup folder filled with early drafts, ones filled with incomplete data, broken links, graphs that didn't line up, and placeholders where real stats should have been. That night, I copied those old drafts into a fresh folder and renamed it with the final presentation's name. I matched the formatting exactly. I even made a few cosmetic changes so it looked recent. Friday morning, she came in early, probably to review the slides before the meeting. I watched her copy the deck to a flash drive and head upstairs. I waited until she was already in the boardroom. Lights dimmed. People settling in. Then I hit send on one email to our manager, CCing the VP and Brenna with the subject line, "Clarification, original author and draft versions attached." In the body, I wrote, "Hi team, just attaching the original versions of the Q2 project deck and data sources, in case there are questions during today's presentation. Happy to walk through changes post-meeting." Then I closed my laptop and went to get coffee. What I heard happen next is secondhand, but it came from someone in the room. They said Brenna started confidently, smiling as she walked through the intro slides. Then came the errors. Outdated metrics. Misquoted clients. Charts that contradicted themselves. Links that led nowhere. She started stammering. The VP interrupted her. She tried to recover, said she must have opened the wrong version. But by then the email had popped up on the VP's iPad. He read it. Then he looked at her. Then he asked where the final deck was and why she had presented something so broken. She had no answer. She didn't come back after lunch. HR sent out a vague email a week later saying she had chosen to pursue new opportunities. No apology. No recognition. Just silence. My manager started treating me a little differently after that. Not warmer, but more careful. I didn't get a raise. I didn't get a thank you. But I got something better. I got to watch her undo herself with my own broken drafts. And no one even saw my hands move. After Brenna left, the office got quieter. No one mentioned her name out loud, but you could feel the shift. People walked slower near her old desk. HR had cleared it out by Monday. For a while, I thought that was it. I thought things would settle. But I was wrong. That email I sent, the one with the drafts, it didn't just expose her. It caused a chain reaction I didn't see coming. That project she stole from me? It was supposed to be the foundation for a much bigger client rollout in Q3. Turns out, the VP had been counting on that deck to secure a contract with one of our biggest partners. When the presentation fell apart, so did part of the deal. Not all of it, but enough to get attention. By midweek, internal audit was sniffing around. They started looking through version histories, access logs, email threads. Someone from legal asked me to forward any relevant materials. So I did. I sent everything. Every draft, every change, every timestamp. I didn't exaggerate anything. I didn't hide anything. I just gave them the truth, plain and simple. That's when I realized Brenna hadn't just stolen the deck. She had also been submitting weekly progress updates to our manager as if she had been working remotely during her leave. Logged into our system through a VPN. Tiny edits here and there. Just enough to make it look like she'd been involved the whole time. It didn't hit me until I saw one of her status reports CC'd to a client contact I'd never even heard of. She had added her name to things months ago, in the background, quietly claiming credit for things I was building. And I hadn't noticed. I was too buried in the work to pay attention. When audit connected that to the failed pitch, things got worse. The department VP started asking tough questions about oversight, accountability, leadership gaps. Our manager looked nervous. Real nervous. 2 weeks later, he was reassigned to another team. Not a demotion, technically. But everyone knew it was punishment. And then something strange happened. People started treating me like I was dangerous. Not in a bad way, more like cautious respect. Coworkers who used to walk past me without a glance started asking if I wanted to join meetings. Directors started copying me on planning threads. Suddenly, I was looped in. It felt fake, like they were afraid of me. Then came the other twist. One morning, I got a meeting invite from Brenna's old friend, Paige. They used to get lunch together, gossip by the elevators. I'd always thought she hated me. She pulled me into a side room, closed the door, and told me she knew what Brenna had done. She said she had tried to warn her that I wasn't someone to mess with. Then she told me something I didn't expect, that this wasn't the first time. Apparently, 2 years ago, Brenna had done something similar to another coworker, took credit, stole a report, reworded some slides, and slid into the spotlight. That coworker left quietly. No fight, just vanished. HR never looked into it. But now, with me, it went public. It cost money. It exposed the whole mess. I didn't say much in that meeting, just nodded. But inside, something shifted. This wasn't just about one stolen project. This was a pattern, one that had been protected. I went back to my desk and opened every folder I had touched over the past 2 years. Every project, every file, every shared doc. I started making a map. Who had access, who had commented, who had claimed what. I didn't know why yet. But I wanted to be ready. Because something told me Brenna hadn't worked alone. The deeper I went into my folders, the more strange overlaps I found. There were files I'd never shared with anyone, but someone else had accessed them. Notes I kept for myself, ideas, rough outlines, models that weren't ready, somehow ended up in polished presentations with someone else's name. Not just Brenna's. 3 other names came up again and again. Paige, Jordan, and Leon. All mid-level. All friendly with Brenna. All still here. They weren't clumsy about it. They didn't steal whole documents. They copied structure, rewrote pieces, used different charts, but kept the logic. They changed just enough to make it seem original. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't started comparing timestamps. My drafts were always days or weeks earlier. I even found comments from me in a spreadsheet Jordan had claimed as his, comments that had been copied and pasted word for word, including one with a typo I distinctly remembered making late one night in February. It all pointed to something bigger. They had been skimming ideas, watching people like me do the work, and jumping in when the spotlight came. Quiet thieves. I printed out a list: timestamps, file names, access logs, side-by-side screenshots. I didn't bring it to HR. Not yet. I knew how that would go. HR protects the company, not the truth. Instead, I went to someone else. Dina. She was a senior analyst in a different division. Not high up, but respected. I'd helped her quietly on a research model last year. She'd given me credit in front of a director when she didn't have to. I remembered that. So I asked if we could get lunch. I didn't tell her everything. I just said I'd noticed some weird overlaps in project ownership, and I didn't know who to talk to. She looked at my notes, flipped through a few pages, and didn't say much. But a few days later, I noticed something. Leon's name disappeared from a planning committee invite. A week after that, Paige's presentation slot at the Q3 Client Summit was reassigned due to scheduling conflicts. Then, out of nowhere, a company-wide memo went out about a new project attribution review process. They were starting an audit of past contributions, with a focus on shared drives and work credit. Anonymous submissions encouraged. I didn't submit anonymously. I attached my name. With everything. 3 weeks later, they quietly asked Paige to transition her responsibilities. Jordan got moved to a non-client-facing role. Leon was put on a performance improvement plan, which is just slow firing with paperwork. No public drama. No confrontations. Just slow unraveling. They still see me in the office. Still say hello. But their eyes look past me now. Like I'm glass. Or worse, like I'm watching. And they're right. Because what they don't know is I kept going. I found 3 more projects where the trail didn't start with me but someone else. People who left quietly. People who weren't protected. And now, I'm not just fighting for myself anymore. I'm going to make sure every stolen credit, every hidden theft, every silent dismissal gets dragged into the light. One spreadsheet at a time. By August, the company felt different. Tense. Quiet. People started closing their laptops when I walked by. Meetings got shorter when I joined. I wasn't being shut out, exactly. They still needed me. But now I was the one they didn't know how to read. The quiet guy who didn't argue, didn't gossip, didn't chase praise, who'd somehow taken down half a team without yelling once. I didn't enjoy it. Not really. I just didn't forget. Especially not when I found the folder labeled clientdev_final_v3_clean. It wasn't mine. It was buried in a drive I hadn't touched in almost 2 years. But when I opened it, I found something that made my stomach drop. It was a full project plan, charts, pitch slides, even financial projections. It was credited to a team led by Leon. The deck had gone out to one of our biggest clients the year before. But I recognized the format instantly. Because it wasn't Leon's. It was Emma's. Emma was a quiet analyst. Same floor. We used to talk at the vending machines sometimes. She'd helped me once with a forecasting model I was stuck on. That was over a year ago. She left 6 months later. No goodbye email. Just gone. I never knew why. Until I opened her old shared folder and found her original draft of that same client pitch. Word for word. Charts with her initials still in the axis labels. Comments to herself like recheck this number and ask finance team. Stuff you leave when you think it's your file. Safe. But someone had copied it, cleaned it, presented it, and taken credit. I looked up her name in our email system. Deactivated. Then I went to LinkedIn. Found her working at a small consulting firm. Still in the same city. I didn't message her right away. I thought about it for weeks. But the more I dug, the worse it got. Because Emma wasn't the only one. I found 2 more cases, similar patterns. Different names. Same outcome. One of them had even flagged the issue in an email to HR. I found the message. It ended with, "I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to be treated fairly." HR never replied. They just closed her ticket and marked it resolved. That's when I knew. This wasn't just bad coworkers. This was protected behavior.
Allowed.
Even encouraged. Keep the loud ones. Discard the quiet ones. Reward the ones who take credit with confidence. Let the rest clean up the mess. I made a list of everyone who left in the past 3 years. Everyone who worked under or near Paige, Brenna, Leon, or Jordan. Everyone whose name showed up in early file versions and never in the final ones. There were 8. 8 people whose work was taken and erased. I knew I couldn't help them all, but I could start with one. So I messaged Emma. I told her who I was. Told her I'd found her old file, that her pitch had been used, but not by her, and that I was trying to understand how deep this went. She messaged back an hour later. Not surprised, she wrote. It happened twice before I left. I stopped fighting it. No one listened. I asked her if she'd be willing to talk, not just to me, but to someone outside. Because by then, I wasn't just building a timeline anymore. I was building a case. And I had a plan. Emma agreed to talk. We met at a cafe near her new job. She looked different, relieved, but still guarded. I showed her the files I'd found. She nodded, barely blinking. Then she pulled out a flash drive. I kept everything, she said. Meeting notes, email threads, drafts with timestamps, even a printed response from HR, with her name misspelled at the top. I told her I wasn't just collecting for curiosity. I had already spoken to 2 others, people who left like her, tired and ignored, people who'd been quietly replaced. And now, with Emma's files, I had more than proof. I had a pattern. So I did the one thing I knew they would not expect. I went outside the company. A month earlier, someone from a small business publication had done a feature on our company. I reached out to that same journalist, using my personal email. I told her I had a story, not a leak, but a list. Names, files, and a timeline. I told her it involved stolen work, suppressed complaints, and quiet exits. She wrote back in a day. We met twice. Then 3 times. Then I gave her the documents. Not just Emma's, but the whole pile. Labeled, sorted, with a list of sources willing to talk off record. Then I waited. I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't even act differently. I just kept doing what I always did, head down, work done, no noise. 3 weeks later, the article dropped. Front page of their business section. The headline named the company. The subtitle included the words, "A culture of silence, stolen credit, and strategic exits." My name wasn't in it. Neither was Emma's. But the quotes were real. The data was sharp. And the examples? Too specific to ignore. The piece exploded. Within 24 hours, our internal Slack channels were locked. HR sent a company-wide message saying, an external report is being reviewed. Meetings were canceled. Directors stopped replying to emails. People whispered in hallways, eyes wide. Paige's LinkedIn went private. Jordan deleted his profile. Leon took personal leave. And our new department VP, just promoted a month earlier, sent out a statement calling the story deeply concerning and announced a third-party investigation. But it wasn't just internal damage. Clients saw the story. One of them, our biggest one, put their contracts on hold. They requested a full audit of everything we'd sent them in the past year. That's when the company panicked. An emergency all-hands meeting was called. The CEO showed up on video, said mistakes were made, promised transparency. Then came the firings.
Jordan gone. Paige gone. Leon gone.
Our old manager? Brought in for compliance questioning. The company tried to spin it as house cleaning, a reset. But people knew. People remembered. And then, the part one didn't expect, Emma got a message. From the same executive who had ignored her complaints years earlier. He apologized. He didn't ask her to come back. He didn't offer her anything. He just said, "You were right."
She forwarded it to me.
No comment. I didn't get a promotion. I didn't want one. But a month after the article, I got called into a meeting with a new director. She said she knew what I'd done, that it wasn't official, that no one would say it out loud. But they were watching now. Closer. And she told me one thing I actually believed. That kind of thing won't happen again. Not while I'm here. I nodded. I left the meeting, sat at my desk, and closed every folder I'd made for this mess. I archived the emails, shredded the papers,
Moved on.
but I'll never forget. Because revenge doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's a quiet file, a copied slide, an email with a subject line that lands like a knife. And the moment the ones who stole from you realize they built their career on a house of lies. And you were the earthquake.